Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Jab Cross Hook. Myself, Amy Kaplan, Reed Wallach. Reed is joining us again after last week's hiatus. Fortunate for us, unfortunate to him. He is now joining us because his Nets did not last very long in the NBA playoffs. Reed, quick comment about your Nets getting embarrassed in the first round. And he froze.
Perfect timing.
I'm conspiracy theory, tinfoil hat. I think he might have did that on purpose.
I think so too.
I'm not going to let him get away with it when he figures his internet out. It's a great facial expression that he froze on.
I know.
And he's still frozen. We'll figure it out. This week's episode, we got a lot to recap. We got Randy Brown, special guest, joining us in a little bit to talk his fight next week at UFC 274 against Chaos Williams. It is a stacked card next week, and that's a fantastic fight that's going to happen between him and Randy Brown. But before we have him on, before we have Randy Brown on the show, a few things to recap. It was actually a pretty busy weekend in mixed martial arts, actually just in martial arts in general. We got a lot to get through. We are going to start, as always, though, with what we are drinking because we are all degenerates. Apparently, Reed's internet is legitimately down. We'll see if we can get him back at some point. It's kind of convenient that happened right as soon as I roasted him about the Nets. Still think that was planned. We'll see. Nick Grassi says we want Randall Brown. Randy Brown's going to come on very shortly, probably in about 15 minutes, 10 minutes. He should be joining us. Amy, what are you drinking before we get into some MMA talk?
Well, I had originally planned a whole theme with some of my picks. So I was going to pick a certain city and then like a beer from that city, but I didn't have it and I was running late. So I ended up with my favorite 805, just something simple. First time I'm drinking beer on the show. I think I've always been wine or hard liquor. There he is.
I was going to say, I think this is your first time drinking beer. So we'll see how that works out for you. By the way, Amy, you are the defending champion. You did win last week. It was just a 2-person draft, but you did beat me. Just to recap those really quick, just to get that out of the way while I have it in front of me here. We both did go 2-1, so we were both profitable. Kudos to the two of us. But I finished plus 0.41 units. You finished plus 0.87 units. So you got a little bit better odds. You got a little bit more aggressive with your picks, and it paid off. But hats off to both of us. We were both profitable with our 3 picks. So, Reed, are you back or are you frozen again? He's gone again.
Yeah, he was gone. It's just a 2-person show again, I think.
Yeah, I definitely think he just doesn't want to talk about his Nets. I am back.
Yeah.
I am back on vodka sodas. Trying to quit beer.
Am I in now?
Yes.
In now. Reed, welcome back. How's your internet doing? Can you hear us?
I am having just terrible Wi-Fi right now.
Can you hear us, Reed? Yes.
Yeah.
Now I'm back. Okay. Yeah, I didn't want to talk about the Nets getting eliminated.
Yeah, that was convenient timing on your part, wasn't it?
Yeah, I pulled out the Wi-Fi. I didn't want to talk about it. But no, I am back. We could look ahead now to the UFC summer calendar because my lovely Brooklyn Nets decided to bow out in 4 games, make it easy so I didn't have to miss another Wednesday show. So thank you for understanding and letting me go through my tough time on a Wednesday.
1-2 Cancun? Is that what they say?
1-2-3 Cancun. Yeah. And I was there on Monday for game 4. Also, I didn't 1-2-3 Cancun. I was locked until the end. So now it's 1-2-3 UFC, I guess, for me.
Reed, do you have a drink for tonight?
Yeah. So it was my roommate's birthday over the weekend. So we have a bunch of Bud Lights in the fridge. So I'm going to do my part to get rid of these. So there's the Bud Light. This is like a solid 5.2 out of 10.
-1 unit already for Reed this week. Bud Light on the show.
We have a bunch of leftover beer. I can't let it sit there. I got to do my part.
No, that's fair. I had a couple Bud Lights at the Yankees game a couple weeks ago. I was disgusted with myself, but that's all right. Let's talk before we get Randy Brown on the show. Let's recap a little last weekend's action. Amy, where do you want to start? Do you want to start with PFL, which was going on as we were recording last week?
Yeah, I mean, I think PFL, PFL kind of gets some hate. I think one of the big things was their pacing was, here comes my cat, was atrocious. She wants to talk PFL as well. But this one, it seems like they finally got it under. Oh my goodness.
Big PFL fan.
That's One-Eyed Millie. Okay, she's going down. They finally seem to have gotten it under control. I feel like They listened to a lot of the criticism and they got it to an appropriate time. But I think, oh my God, that main event was crazy. Clay Collard, Jeremy Stevens. It was Jeremy Stevens' debut in the promotion. Really, really, really good main event. Potential fight of the year. And we had a few of those this weekend. I mean, this month, April, has been fight of the year month. It's crazy. Like, all these fights have been insane. So good.
Quick side note, we're not going to spend too much time on this, but just speaking of PFL and kind of promotions outside the UFC, I did see one championship. I don't think this is added on our list here, but one championship signed a deal with Amazon, I think, got released today. So that we're going to see a lot more one championship in North America, which is always good. I'm always for more MMA and getting these kind of other outside UFC promotions a little bit more love, because as we saw last week with that Jeremy Stevens fight, there are some very good athletes, some very good fighters in these other promotions. Let's talk about Bellator. Do you think Cyborg was a fight of the year as well against Arlene Pronounce her last name for me. Blenko.
Yeah, Blenko. Yeah, I mean, I do. I know I got a lot of hate saying that on Twitter, but everybody was saying, well, she just beat her up for 5 rounds. But you cannot underestimate somebody lasting 5 rounds with Cyborg. And yeah, she did beat her up 5 rounds, but Cyborg took some too. She wasn't just being beat up. And let's just say that that's still freaking impressive, because Cyborg is a machine. And that fight was
Cyborg.
Yeah, I mean, easily the best female fight of the year. I would put it in my nominees for fight of the year. I wouldn't put it, I mean, with some of the others, it's a little bit less than that, but I still think it needs to be talked about. Arlene looked amazing. The fight was totally different than the first one. And I was just the whole time just going, the whole time freaking out. So it's a great fight.
Are they gonna do a trilogy fight? Is that already in the works? Is that already decided?
I don't know. I don't know if they will. I know Cyborg really wants to box, so I don't know how much longer Cyborg really has. I know she wants to have children. She wants to get married. She wants to do the family thing. So I don't know. We'll see. But I know she really wants to box.
Yeah. And there was another fight on that on Bellator card. What I believe is Bellator. Liz Carmouche, correct?
Yes. So that was the night before. So they had two.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's right. They had back to back. Yeah.
Yeah. So Liz Carmouche won the title. It was her first ever title in a major organization. It was in front of a crowd that was all military. They had done a show that was specifically for military. Anyone who had a military ID could get in for free. That included first responders, firemen, paramedics, that sort of thing. And she obviously has the past military experience.
Former Marine.
Yeah. And so it was a really emotional moment for her. Unfortunately, it was kind of marred by the fact that a lot of people thought it was an early stoppage. It was a little bit of an early stoppage. We kind of call it in the media a girl stoppage, whereas if it was 2 men, they probably would let it go. But if it's 2 women, they kind of they don't want to see as much pain.
I've never heard that before.
Oh yeah,
I didn't know MMA media referred to it as that.
Yeah, I mean,
I've heard that before. Do you think there's some merit to that, Amy?
Yes, 100%, absolutely. I think that if that had been 2 men, it would have kept going. I don't necessarily think that. I mean, it was a little early, but I'm not gonna argue with it too much. I'm not gonna be like, no, conspiracy theory or anything like that.
Yeah. So quick but fair.
Quick but fair.
Okay.
I did see it. I thought it was a little. Well, I think the biggest issue with the stoppage was the fact that there was only 10, 15 seconds left in the round. And if that was 2.5 minutes left, then it kind of made sense, because she had her in a position that she was not going to get out of. But she probably could have survived 15 more seconds. Yeah. But I don't know if a referee is supposed to consider how much time is left in the round when they're making a stoppage. If someone's in a bad position they can't get out of, are they supposed to take into account that there's only 15 seconds left and they can probably last that long or not? I don't know. I haven't read the rule book for referees.
Yeah, I feel like they probably aren't. I mean, I think too, from the angle that he was standing and from our angle as viewers, we could see that the elbows weren't doing a ton of damage. But for him, maybe he thought they were doing a lot of damage, because they looked really, hard elbows. So I could understand where he might have thought that was doing more damage than it was. So that's kind of why I think I'm okay with the stoppage. Because again, it's the angle. I mean, it's one guy seeing it. We're seeing it from like 50 different angles. So you got to think.
And she had her in a bad position. It was like a crucifix or something. Like she wasn't going anywhere. But then again, like I said, it kind of brings up the question. She probably could have lasted 10, 15 more seconds.
Reps are constantly in like the word. Like I feel like they can never get it right. Like it's not even their fault. It's just like they let someone get their brains beaten in too much. You call it too quick. Like it's such a lose-lose. Like you either do it too fast or too slow. It's such a lose-lose. I find it like such a thankless job. Like, hey, you know what? Good stoppage. Like that. Good job.
Yeah, I would never want to be a referee or a judge because I feel like it's the worst job.
Yeah, judging is like, I mean, for just the people that are judging, they like seem to never get it right anyway. So talk about thankless jobs.
Right.
This was Bellator, I think, as well. I'm sorry, I get Bellator and PFL mixed up. Stotts against delivers first KO loss to Juan Archuleta. Was that Bellator or PFL?
That was Bellator co-main event to Cyborg's fight. It was the first Grand Prix fight. It was the fight originally was supposed to be with the champion Sergio Pettis and his friend and teammate Rafion Stotts. And obviously, Rafion went to a different camp for this because he, obviously couldn't have the same coach coaching two guys. Then Sergio got injured, and so the champ that Sergio got his title from stepped in. So it was sort of like the next best thing. Juan Archuleta is no joke. He's never been stopped in a fight. And Rafion knocked him out in a really fun, crazy, exciting way. And that was, Rafion's a very good friend of mine. So watching that fight was really exciting for me to see him finally get his title. So it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the tournament goes now that we have a new interim champion.
Once again, a perfect example of if you're not watching these promotions outside of the UFC, you definitely have to if you're a fan of mixed martial arts. But there obviously was a UFC card last weekend that we haven't touched on. And Amy, something that we talked about last week, these UFC cards that don't necessarily have the biggest names in the world sometimes deliver the most exciting fights. And we kind of got that this past week. The main card, 4 of the 5 main card fights were first round finish. Jessica Andrade pulled off the first ever standing arm triangle choke inside the UFC.
Vicious.
Just a vicious submission. That's the knee bar by Claudio Puelles against Clay Guida.
Good job by you, Ian. I know you had Puelles. I had Clay Guida.
Thank you. I even kind of hinted towards a first round submission. No big deal. But any submissions that involve legs are tough to watch for me. So that was especially a knee bar. That's nasty submission.
Wait, and then the standing arm triangle that doesn't you don't find that very gruesome? You find that like kind of pleasant to watch?
Well, no, because usually with chokes, like 10 seconds later you're fine. Like
you're not going to
go
with
ones like you're tearing apart.
No, I'm messing with you. I'm messing because I think submissions are, I would argue, like more gruesome to watch than knockouts. Because like knockouts, you're like, oh, like submissions are like.
Especially with limb submissions.
Yeah.
The submissions, you can almost feel them. You know what I mean? Like, you can feel it in your arm, or you can feel it in your leg, or it's like,
there was that clip a couple weeks ago. I think it was in like a Brazilian promotion or something, and a girl had someone in a Kimura and just popped her shoulder right out. Oh,
yeah, like that's so painful.
Oh, it makes you like a little bit.
A knockout, like it's just kind of like a little, like it's like faster, and like you're like, whoa, like that's crazy. A submission is like that, like looks incredibly painful and violent.
I still love it. Last year, somebody lost their finger. Their finger was literally ripped off their hand, and then they lost the finger in the middle of the fight.
Where did that happen?
This really happened. CFFC, I think.
Oh, I remember that. Yes, I do remember that.
These are the little promotions you need to be watching. People losing fingers.
And then they got it. They found it, and then he got it sewn back on, and then he fought again, not that night or anything, but like recently. And everybody was like, that's the finger guy. So like, that's what he's going to be.
I remember that. I think I subconsciously buried that deep in my mind because I didn't want to think about that again. But yeah, 5 fights in the main card last week in the UFC, 4 first round, not only first round finishes, first round submissions. And then even in the prelims, 3 of the 6 were first round finishes. One of them was a DQ, the opening fight of the night. So maybe not necessarily as exciting or as something that you'd want to see as opposed to an actual finish, but it was an exciting card. I already talked about the historic standing arm triangle choke. It kind of reminded me, I know it wasn't a standing arm triangle choke when it happened, but when John Jones choked out Lyoto Machida up against the cage and his body just kind of crumpled to the ground, it kind of reminded me of that submission back in the day. Yes. So there we go. We are gonna touch on a few more things later on before we do get to the draft. But our special guest is here. Let's bring him in. UFC welterweight Randy Brown getting ready for his UFC 274 fight next week against Chaos Williams. Can we bring him in?
Drum roll.
Oh, we're working on the audio.
We might have audio issues with him. He's here. We might be having audio issues, or audio only, no video. Then do we have audio only? Do we have his audio here? Randy, do you hear me?
A jab
Randy?
cross hook first.
No.
No Randy yet. He's kind
He's
of in the
somewhere.
back room. He's in the back room. He's in the green room of the stream. He might be
The
audio only.
The
but there's no
vocal
audio
green
right
room
now.
of the stream.
While we get that figured out, let's quickly talk about something else that happened in the UFC card. We'll jump right back to Randy as long as we can get that figured out. Shout out to a couple of Canadian fighters, back-to-back submissions on the card. Marc-Andre Barrios defeated Jordan Wright, and then Charles Jourdain submitted Lando Veneta. 2 back-to-back Canadians first-round submission finishes. Amy, you were actually on Charles Jourdain. He was one of your picks. Shout out to Canada, and once again, trying to climb back into UFC mixed martial arts relevancy. People forget Canada used to be my Canadian brethren. We used to be a powerhouse in mixed martial arts. We had GSP, we had Rory McDonald, we had Carlos Newton back in the day. We've kind of quieted off the MMA stream or the MMA kind of forefront, but we're fighting back. There's a couple guys there.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised you didn't pick them when we were doing the draft, but I wasn't going to say anything because I wanted one of them. But, after the fight, I asked one of them, can't remember which one it was now, whichever the first Canadian was that went on the card. I asked him about Canadian MMA because in PFL, and never say this guy's name right, Olivier
Aubin-Mercier.
Yes, thank you. That's it. Him.
That was like the most, in a way, you always seem to say something Canadian. That was very, very, that came out very, easy. I could just tell. That
that was
everything.
beautiful.
That was good.
He had said Canadian MMA is dead. I mean, he said some really it's pointless, it's hopeless, blah, 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 blah. And so I asked the Canadians on the UFC card if they felt that same way. They said no. They proved no. There's people coming up. I think that Canadian MMA is definitely not gone. I think they had a rough time with the pandemic because it was very strict. I believe it's still pretty strict out there, but give it time. I think Canadians are still there. Yeah, John McDessie, he's Canadian. Yes.
And the guy who I picked a few weeks ago, who I mistakenly said he was from Halifax on the show. I don't know if I ever retracted that. Sherdog gave me wrong information. It turns out he's from Toronto or somewhere in Ontario. Went to Dalhousie, which is in Halifax, and where he trained MMA for a little bit in TJ Grant's gym, but he's not from Halifax. I'm blanking on his name. I apologize. I picked him. He won for me. There's a couple young up-and-coming Canadian.
Mike Malott.
Yes, correct.
Oh, I saw him today at Media Day.
How's he doing?
He's good. He was just standing there. I didn't say anything to him. But Randy's back.
Is Randy here? Randy, can we hear you?
Yeah.
I'm here.
Yay!
There he is.
There he is.
Randy Brown, UFC welterweight, joining us, getting ready for his UFC 274 fight against Chaos Williams. Randy, thank you for joining us today. How are you doing? How are you feeling ahead of your fight next week?
I'm feeling good, man. I'm feeling good. Thank you guys for having me. Feeling great, and I'm ready to go.
Awesome. I'm excited you're here. It's our first 2 weeks out from a fighter coming on talking on the show. So you're not quite in that weight cutting mode yet.
Not yet, but soon. I'm water loading. I'm drinking a ton of water. I'm dieting, but still going strong.
Yeah. So Randy, you've been in the UFC since 2016. You started with the promotion. 12 fights under your belt, and you're coming on a 2-fight winning streak. You're facing Chaos Williams. Are you starting to map out maybe like a trajectory up the welterweight ranks? What's the goals here on this little run you're on? And, how do you see your fight with Chaos going?
I'm just taking it one fight at a time. You know what I mean? I'm taking it one fight at a time. So for me, I'm just focusing on chaos. Obviously, I understand that, you know, a win streak, furthering my win streak is going to bring me to where I want to be, which is the rankings and ultimately, you know, leading into the top 5 of the world. But right now I got to take it a step at a time, and I got to focus on chaos and how I see that fight unfolding. I think I get it done. I think I get the job done. I go in there and show, you know, my skill.
What was your thoughts when you first heard that name as your opponent?
I was excited. I'm like, oh wow, okay. You know, he's tough. He's one of those people that's gonna draw the best out of me because I know he's a banger. You know, he's a big power puncher. Those dudes that are always coming forward, you know what I mean, throwing really aggressive like that. I think that brings the best out of me.
I do got to
people
shout out everyone in
watching.
the. Yeah,
Sorry,
there's a
I was
lot.
just saying
You have a
fans.
lot of fans in the chat right now. On Walker says, "Randy, marry me." Nick Rossi has a question about beans. I don't know if you eat beans.
That's my Discord. That's probably just ignore them. They're trolls. That's the Root Gang. Shout out to the Root Gang.
I love it. Are you a gamer, Randy? Do you have a Discord channel? I assume. Do you stream often or?
Yeah, actually, I stream a podcast on Twitch every Friday and Sunday called The Pro and the Bro. You know, I also game from time to time. Not enough. They're getting ready to probably talk some shit that I don't game enough. But yeah, I stream a ton.
When you do game, what do you play?
I play random stuff, typical Call of Duty, you know, like everybody else. Mostly for me, I like decision-making games, story games, where the decision that you make change the outcome of the story. You know, that's more my type of style. So I play those type of games.
Do you ever get fans that are like, because we were talking to Kay Hansen a couple weeks ago, and she was saying how no matter what she does, if she posts anything that's not MMA related, they're always like, why aren't you training? Go back to training. Do you get that kind of a thing? Or do you think people are more like excited to see you gaming?
For me, I get the opposite. You know, I get the opposite. It's like, bro, like, where are you? Why you not in the stream? Why you not gaming? Why you not doing this? Come on, you're not even interacting. Like, what are you doing? I get the opposite, but I think people understand that there's a lot of time that we have. We're not just training all day, every day. You know, it's either 2 to 3 times out of the day, and each of those sessions maybe 2 to 3 hours. You know what I mean? So we got time to do other stuff.
Your fans are going ballistic in the chat right now as they say, ask him about the OnlyFans. Are you starting up an OnlyFans?
No, I'm not. I got the trolls. I'm telling you.
That would have been the second UFC fighter on the show that had an OnlyFans if you did have one. I do want to ask you, Randy, about betting, because we are kind of a betting show, sports betting show. Do you ever look at the odds before you go and fight an opponent at all?
I do actually. I like that because again, my Discord, they always bet on me, so they make a ton of money. My friends make a ton of money. You know what I mean? I'm mostly the underdog for some reason. I love it. So yeah, I definitely look into it. I don't really give it too much merit, but I love when I'm the underdog so that we can come up.
So do you ever bet? Sorry.
Oh, we all jumped in there.
No, I don't bet. I'm not a gambling man. But if I did, I would bet on Andy Brown May 7th.
So, Randy, I see all the time, like during the UFC shows, like they're showing tweets of different fighters and stuff like that. Even if you're not betting per se, but you're watching the UFC events on Saturday, like, are you looking at maybe, oh, this person's the favorite, that person's the underdog? Like, do you have your own kind of, I guess, intuition on who should be favored, who shouldn't? Like, maybe scouting future opponents during the actual fights?
Absolutely. Again, I have a show, and in my show, we have locks. You know, I do my locks, and they get to bet, and they come for the locks and all that. And I give them 3 solid locks, a 3 parlay that I feel are guaranteed winners, and I just do pick who I think is going to win for sure. But I don't tweet as much. Me and Amy had a run-in back in the day. Amy scared me off. Scared me off.
What did I do?
Twitter a long time ago.
No, what did I do?
What'd you do?
No. I'm just kidding. It was I don't even think you remembered it was me, but I remember I commented on something, and
did I say you were a dick or something?
Yeah, you did. You were like, look at this crock of shit. And I was like, damn, like I'm never really on like Twitter. I rarely tweet, right? And I was like, damn, like as soon as I came on here, I'm just getting destroyed. So I was just like, all right, I was like away from Twitter for like 6 months. I'm like, damn,
come back.
I'm never tweeting.
I probably did because I'll pretty much call everybody a dick on Twitter because 99.9% of the time they're being dicks.
Yeah.
So I just
definitely.
automatically jumped to that conclusion.
After a while, when I got back on Twitter, I'm like, oh, I get it now. Twitter is mostly full of assholes, so that's probably why she reacted like that. And my intention when I tweeted, it was more so I was like helping. I was like trying to give like some heartfelt advice in that moment, and it's just
you were mansplaining.
This guy, they're like, no, fuck this guy, get him out of here. I'm like, damn, everyone just jumped on me. I'm like, shit, let me get out of here.
Oh, I'm sorry. That makes me feel so sad. That's embarrassing.
I live on Twitter, Randy, so I feel you. Some days I wish I could take a little break from it because it gets a little insane on there. So I don't blame you if you don't come back to Twitter, but I would welcome you with open arms if you come back on Twitter a little bit more.
Yeah, come back. But I do have to say, I did notice you tweeted recently, I believe it was you, about the Masvidal, Masvidal punching Colby and then Will Smith at the Oscars. And you kind of said, and this is right, this is you, right? You said that, people are getting too comfortable with what they're saying and not like having, repercussions for what they're saying. And I'm curious, like, how do you feel about trash talk in a fight? Like, where's the line there? Like, what do you think what is an appropriate response? Like, when somebody punches somebody for what they say, like, what is that thing that they would say that would make you want to punch them in the face?
Well, for me personally, I don't think there's anything you could say to me that would make me want to do anything to you that I don't think I was going to do anyway if we're scheduled to fight. You know what I mean? So I always look at it like this. I was taught coming up in martial arts, I'll break your face with a smile. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, I don't have to be mad to inflict martial arts. You know what I mean? So not because you said something mean to me doesn't mean that when I mount you with this elbow, oh, now I'm mad. Doesn't mean I wasn't going to bring this elbow down with hell, hell behind it. But like now, all of a sudden, I'm going to bring it down harder. No, I don't really. It's the same thing. So, but to answer your question, I think that there is a line. At the end of the day, certain lines shouldn't be crossed. When you shouldn't talk about people's kids, you shouldn't talk about people's family. You shouldn't talk about street stuff. At the end of the day, this is a sport. You can't talk street game like, all right, when I see you in the streets, because every one of us have different backgrounds and different walks of life. Martial arts, the only thing we have in common is martial arts, and that's what changed our lives and brought us together, right? So for me, you never know what's going to trigger a person and set a person off. So you don't talk street shit to somebody, no matter who you're dealing with. That's street shit. Some people live by a different code. Not even some people just grew up differently. You can't say when I see you in the street, this is what it's gonna be. And then when they see you in the street, you're like, it was entertainment. It doesn't work like that. And there's no rules there in the street. Things are different. As far as the Will Smith thing, I thought it happened like week after the other. So my tweet was, there goes words having consequences again. I feel like words have consequences, and do I agree? Do I condone the things that the person, that we're talking about did in the street? I wouldn't do it. I don't condone it, but I understand it, and I know that could happen. So if you're going to talk shit to a certain extent, you just have to understand that these are things that could happen. The internet will feel like they're untouchable because they used to be behind the screen. Where I grew up, there's words, there's actions and consequences to your words,
What about the Mike Tyson thing? Because I feel like as fighters, you guys are always bombarded with fans kind of like forgetting that you're people, that you're out having a meal or you're with your family or doing whatever. Like, what do you think of that situation where, he took a picture with the guy wouldn't stop, and he finally just lost his cool? I mean, I think we've all been there. We probably all wanted to punch somebody in the face.
Hey, I loved it. I loved it. It's, short and sweet. I loved it. It's good. I think we're in a space now where it's reminding people. We got too far back into the social media and like in the internet world. And no, words have consequences, and you can't just mess with people and it's funny. You're like treating him like he's some kind of like sideshow. Like it was like, oh, look at me. I'm over here, my friend taking a video of me. Look, I got Mike Tyson in front of me. Like, that's a person. He told you like, yo, relax, bro. Like I'm not doing that right now. Just all right. I took a picture with you. Cool. Don't keep pressing the issue. And things can happen to you. People can touch you. I don't know why people don't think that they can't get touched. Like, you can get touched.
Yeah, and he did it to Mike Tyson, who I believe he had the famous quote of everyone has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. Well, that guy learned that day. Randy, I do want to ask you. You've been in the UFC coming up on 6 years? 2016, I believe you made your UFC debut. Is there anything that you've seen that, because the sport's still relatively young to an extent, have you seen the sport change at all over the last 6 years, or is there anything that you still think needs to be changed in the sport?
There's a ton of things that need to be changed. I'm not the guy to change it. I'm not going to get into it, but we all know there's a ton of things that need to be changed. And the sport has changed thus far. It's slowly growing. There's things, that I enjoy, that I could see headed in the right direction. But there's also, in a combat sense, dudes are coming in more, especially on the Contender Series. I love the Contender Series. You see guys are a higher level now. The newer guys are at a higher level. I even see it in the gyms. Guys that are fairly new to the game, they're putting it together nice. You know what I mean? And they're performing at a high level, and they're not even at the big show yet. So I can see the sport overall growth. Everyone's getting better. The standard has risen.
Do you believe it's the same? Like, people, when the sport first started, UFC, and it still is, UFC is like the goal for most fighters. But I think there's been a lot of promotions that are kind of coming up too, that are putting the UFC at run for their money. Do you feel like maybe at some point in the future, the UFC might not be the number one promotion? Or do you think it's going to it's well and above everybody else? There's no hope for anybody else.
I think there's no hope for anybody else. I think the UFC is they're the big boy on the block. You know what I mean? So I think that they are going to change a lot. And there'll be other companies to come up and do well. But I think that the UFC will always be the leader in the sport.
I do want to ask you, Randy, you've had 2 of your last 3 wins have come by submission. This is kind of one of my favorite questions that I like to ask fighters, especially guys who pull off a lot of submissions. Do you have a submission in your back pocket, or is there one that you've kind of always wanted to pull off in the UFC?
Wow. I never thought about it. There's a lot of stuff I want to do. It's just a matter of getting the opportunity to do it.
That's always the tough part, obviously.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of submissions that I get to hit in the gym, and I hit daily. I never really thought about that. A win is a win for me, man. However I could get it done. I like to finish the fights, and however I could get it, I'll take it.
Juan Walker just brought up in the chat, and this is one that I always say, no one's done it in the UFC yet. I want someone to do it first. They said flying Gogo Plata. I'll take the flying part out of it, but I want to see a Gogo Plata in the UFC.
That's the one I always
bring up. That's
right. I attempted a Gogo Plata years ago against Mickey Gall. I failed miserably. Right? But I'll try it. I'll try anything in there. I'm a free spirit when I'm fighting, man. I'll try whatever.
Beautiful.
So, Randy, you have a ton of finish on your belt, both knockouts and submissions. Does even a decision, is it just a win's a win, or are you really going in there with maybe like, oh, I'm about to finish this guy by submission, I'm trying to knock him out? Like, is there a specific game plan, or you're just going out there and you're going to let the game come to you?
It's interesting. My thing is how I see it, right? I approach fighting very differently, I guess. I don't know if it's different, but for how I see it is, I never really go and try to stick to one thing. I'm looking to implement martial arts, right? I'm implementing the things that my sensei and my teacher has taught me. And I think if I can execute those things the right way, properly, how I execute them in the gym, if they're executed, then that person shouldn't be there just receiving it. You know what I mean? No matter how good they are, if it's executed correctly, they shouldn't be able to just take it. So, and I think I credit that to a lot of my finishes, just me executing. So when I go in a fight, I never really have a plan. Oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to submit this guy. I'm just executing my techniques, you know what I mean? And if I execute it, I'm not just fighting and looking for like an opening. I'm literally just executing, He has to worry about what I'm going to do. I'm not really concerned about what he has to do, and I'm looking to execute. And if I execute, then people shouldn't be standing in front of me anymore.
Well, Randy, I appreciate you joining us today, taking the time. Obviously, you're busy heading into next week. Best of luck in your fight against Chaos Williams next week at UFC 274. Everyone tune in for that. And, of course, we'll be rooting for you, man.
Oh, man. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
We're all going to fight over who gets to bet on you next week.
Hey, I may be the underdog, so it'll be smart. Trust me. Throw a bag on Henry Brown.
Thank you so much.
Take care, Randy.
Bye. That was fun.
Awesome. Good stuff. I love all his fans in the chat giving him some love as well. That's awesome.
Yay. Yeah, you guys are fun. Stick around and give us shit the rest of the show.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
No, I really liked kind of the end there where he was talking about kind of his evolution of not only his game, but the UFC and how he, kind of his thought process when he goes out there. Like, it doesn't matter who he's facing. He's just going to go and execute his technique, his style. So I thought that was awesome and like some good insight actually into like the fight game itself.
And I hope if he ever pulls off a go-go plata, even though I had nothing to do with it, myself and Juan Walker in the chat, we're gonna take a little bit of credit for that. Couple quick things I do want to cover, and then of course we're going to get in the UFC draft. For anyone new, we draft our picks for this weekend's UFC, a little friendly competition between the three of us, and it gives us a chance to kind of break down our thoughts on some fights for this weekend. But there were a few quick things I believe that we did not get to about this past weekend. I think the main thing is we are obviously a mixed martial arts show primarily, but really just martial arts in general. We got to talk a little boxing. Tyson Fury, and actually this does relate to mixed martial arts a little bit because of kind of what happened at the end. Tyson Fury went on to win once again in a 6th round knockout, a vicious uppercut against Dillian White. Arguably the greatest, definitely one of the greatest heavyweight boxers of all time, finished in fantastic fashion. But kind of the news and how this relates to mixed martial arts is he brought in a UFC heavyweight champion, Francis Ngannou, into the ring afterwards and said that the two are going to fight, which is kind of weird because right before that he said he retired. He promised his wife he was going to retire after the 3rd Deontay Wilder fight, but then he wanted to fight at the stadium. What's the name of the stadium in England? He wanted to fight in there. What's that?
I think it's Wembley, right?
Wembley, yes. He wanted to fight in Wembley Stadium.
96,000 people there.
Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, he's like a god there.
Yeah,
of course. Yeah. And then he said, "This is it. He's done." And then he brings in Francis Ngannou and said he's going to fight him. I feel like that's not retiring if you're going to fight.
I have some info about that. I've got some info about that. Not anything crazy, but Anthony Smith, who is a UFC fighter, obviously, he said on his podcast that both Fury and Francis did not plan that. Neither one of them knew the other one was going to go in the ring. So like Francis, I guess somebody just put him in the ring. He wasn't planning on going and getting in the ring. Fury didn't know Francis was there and was going to get in the ring. So that was all really organic, like in the moment. And I don't know if you guys realize, but he asked him if he has a big Corey. Do you know what a Corey is?
No.
Fury asked Francis Ngannou if he has a big Corey. That is slang for...
Oh, wow.
When you said it, I thought, I mean, I'm not British, but I had an intuition.
Yeah. So there was a lot of weirdness going on in there. I don't think that's not going to happen. Like, that fight's not going to happen. That was just them having fun. No, that was them having fun, them having... Like, I think Tyson Fury really is retired.
But there has been whispers of that the past couple of years, though.
Yeah.
I think if Fury could still be retired and fight Ngannou, because I don't think that's like a real, like, it's the same thing as McGregor Mayweather. Like, I don't think that's like a serious like boxing match. Like,
it would be hybrid rules too. So what they were saying,
like it would be like another cash play. I wouldn't even like count that as like Tyson Fury in a boxing match. Yeah, exactly. So I think it'd be more of a cash grab than anything. But
yeah, because I think they said it would be in a boxing ring, but with MMA gloves and then modified rules, which they're very specific on.
Yeah, I mean,
I think this would end up being a boxing match. More or less.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not. I don't see it happening. But I know we all saw that with Conor and Mayweather too. So
We do need to get to the draft here because we are kind of on the back end here. We're a little bit late getting to the draft, but I did want to shout out. We don't have to dive into this too much, but arguably, I mean, I'm not the biggest boxing historian in the world, but is this weekend's fight between Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor the biggest women's boxing match of all time? I know for a fact it is the first combat sport at Madison Square Garden that's headlined by two women. Amanda Serrano has a chance to become a two-division undisputed champion, which is completely unheard of in the sport of boxing. So any quick thoughts on this from either of you?
Yeah, I think I don't know a ton about boxing. I know a little bit about Amanda because she did some MMA for Combate Americas for a little bit. She actually got submission wins there, which was just
Yes,
nuts.
I saw that. Yeah.
I think if I were putting money on it, I'd put money on Amanda just because I know her and I have that like connection. But yeah, all I've heard is how big this fight is, and I think it's great for women's boxing.
I think I considered going to it. We'll see. Tickets aren't too expensive. I dove into it a little bit today. I'm actually going to pick. It's actually the odds are pretty close. Serrano's a slight favorite. Katie Taylor's a slight underdog. I am going to put my money in Katie Taylor as a slight underdog. I think she's a little bit more of a technical boxer, where Serrano is more of a I think it's like 22 of her 30 wins or something around that range come by knockout. But she's going up in weight class. She is currently the featherweight undisputed champion, and she's now fighting Katie Taylor, who's the lightweight undisputed champion. I believe I have that right. So I think the size difference might kind of make that power difference a little minute. And I think Katie Taylor, at least once again, not a boxing expert, but I think she's a little bit more technical, won the gold medal at the 2012 Olympics in boxing. And usually those Olympian boxing boxers are a little bit more technical, a little bit better footwork. So I'm going to back Katie Taylor as a slight underdog. I think it's going to be a good fight and obviously a historic fight for women's combat sports. Perfect. Yeah. Let's get into the UFC draft. We had a lot to cover and a great interview there with Randy Brown. But let's get into the UFC draft for this weekend's card. A little bit of a warm-up for next weekend's stacked card of UFC 274, but there are still some very good fights on the card. We are back to a three-person draft now that you have joined us, Reese. So for anyone who's new, it is a snake draft. 3 picks. Once a fight is off the table, obviously, or once a fighter has been selected, no one else can obviously draft that fighter. That's kind of the sense of the draft. We do 3 picks each. It is a snake. We go 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3. And at the conclusion of the card this weekend, the person who finishes up the most units, so we do take betting odds into consideration, wins. Last week was a 2-person draft with just myself and Amy. We both went 2-1, but Amy wins with a little bit, walking with a little bit of a higher profit. So Amy, because you won last week, you choose the draft order. What's going to be the order for this weekend?
Okay, well, the champion will go first.
Okay.
Then I'm going to give Reed the second shot just because he's been missing. And then Ian, I feel like the third one is the hardest spot. I don't know why. So I'm giving that one to you because I feel like you're my stiffest competition. Only because Reed was gone last week. No offense.
I have 1 win. So if we're going by measuring wins, you two are both blowing me out of the water. Are we doing, I don't think we discussed this actually before the show.
Whole card.
Doing whole card for any round? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think.
Okay. I think that's the way to go for the non-pay-per-views, and then pay-per-views, maybe we start off with just prelims.
Agreed.
I got to tell you, though, I'm ice cold with my UFC bets. Maybe I should have came on the show last week. I've lost like 5 in a row, so I got to get back on track here. So we got to get a win here. This is a must-win week for me. I haven't won in a while.
You did kind of start off like winning a few drafts in a row, and then lately it's
I've definitely tapered off. So I got to reaffirm myself as the champion,
the king of the draft.
Yeah, so I gotta get on track here.
All right, then let's start it off. Amy, first overall pick.
Okay, so I told you I had a theme in the beginning that I was gonna go with. I'm going with Milwaukee as my theme, which means I'm going with Jared Gordon as my first pick, even though he doesn't live and train in Milwaukee anymore, but that's where I've kind of that's what I think of him as. I believe he's a plus 145 last I checked.
Yeah.
And you know me, I like the underdogs. But something he said to me at Media Day kind of made me think. So he had this really interesting take about his opponent has switched camps and is at a different camp now. And I, in the past, have always said, that makes somebody really dangerous because you don't know what they've learned. You don't know all this new stuff they've had. They're, what a blah, 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 But he said that when you switch, and he knows because he switched from Rufus Sport down to somewhere in Florida that he's training now. It takes a while your body will automatically do what you're used to doing. So all the stuff that you've learned at your old gym is going to stick with you. It's going to take a few fights before all the new learning starts to kick in and becomes natural. So really that new fighter, new camp thing is not really a thing until 2 or 3 fights in. So that's why I'm going with Jared Gordon. I think that's a really cool way to look at his opponent. And again, Milwaukee, going with Milwaukee fighters.
Amy, starting off with a big underdog. Do we have a graphic for this fight? Did we already show it?
Oh, I don't know.
There it is. Jared Gordon's fighting, just so we see who his opponent is there, against Grant Dawson. Jared Gordon plus 140 or plus 145 underdog. Little red flag that I see is a little 4-inch reach advantage for Grant Dawson. Maybe that is a reason why he is a minus 175 favorite, but 17-1-1. That's going to be a good fight, though.
Last fight was a draw. So.
Yes.
Jared's was?
Grant Dawson. He's 17-1-1, but his last fight was the extra one.
Also, Jared used to be a 145er, so he's not going to be cutting a lot of weight. So that's one thing to keep in mind as well. He really sounded like he really likes 155. He says he feels better. Everything is better at 155. So that's another little edge for Jared.
All right, Reed, you're up.
So the whole card is available, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Lovely, because I'm going to be on the main event. Happy that I got this pick. I'm taking Rob Font. Definitely on board here. Definitely on board here. And it is a little tricky because I really like Marlon Vera. I find myself betting Marlon Vera a lot. But so Rob Font lost his last fight against Jose Aldo, and I think it's kind of driving his price down, where Marlon Vera, he beat up on 2 worse fighters in his last 2, so he's coming in winner of 2 straight. Rob Font got kind of knocked off the ledge with a loss, so I think this is a good buy low, sell high spot here. Font, busier striker, he could win the grappling exchanges. I treat Rob Font as a contender in this weight class, whereas Marlon Vera I think is more of a gatekeeper. So I think that this is a kind of ridiculous price on Rob Font. I think he's the clear side here, so I'll take him minus 135. If I had to guess, Ian's going to be on Marlon Vera based on his reaction. So,
yes, correct. You said you were going to bet on the main event, and I wondered if you were going to steal my pick, but then I should have known. Literally every single draft that we do read, we are on opposite sides of at least one fight.
So do you think that's a good thing or a bad? Do you think it's better? Obviously, for content-wise, I think it's better that we're against each other, but I feel like at this point, we're 500 betting against each other. It kind of goes both ways.
Yeah, we are kind of back and forth on this. Last week, I know you bet it. Both Andrew and Amy were on Clay Guida last week, so I got on the right side of it that time. But in the past, you've definitely been on the right side. So it's been 50-50. So because it's 50-50.
Give your Marlon Vera spiel.
I have to say one thing about Rob Font, which I hadn't really thought about. He's had 3 UFC main events. I think he's lost them all. But that tells me that the UFC sees something in him. Somebody sees something in him. There's a reason
he's legit. Rob Font's legit.
Yeah.
Rob Font's very good.
I would have picked
Aldo his last fight.
I would have picked Rob over Cheeto.
Just looking here. His last 2 fights were main events for sure. He beat Cody Garbrandt. He lost to Jose Aldo. I don't know if there's a
beat the crap out of Cody Garbrandt. Okay, not that it's saying much.
So this will be his 3rd.
Yes. But yes, I am in Marlon Vera here as an underdog. I think he's being underrated. People are trying to discount his win against Sean O'Malley, but that was a very legitimate win, and people still praise Sean O'Malley, and rightfully so. But he beat Sean O'Malley. He had Jose Aldo on the ropes. He just front kicked Frankie Edgar into oblivion. And one of the things I like about Marlon Vera quite a bit is that he's an accurate striker, 51% strike accuracy rate, which is pretty solid, certainly in the upper echelon of his weight class in that category. So I think I would probably set this fight as a pick'em. I wouldn't be surprised if Rob Font wins either, but anytime there's a pick'em, especially in the main event, give me the underdog. And also I've been picking favorites last week screwed me, so I got to take at least one underdog here. So give me Marlon Vera plus 115. That concludes the first round. Before I give my second pick here, let's take a quick look-see. Myself and Amy both on underdogs. Amy's on Gordon. I'm on Vera. Gordon plus 145, Vera plus 115. And Reed, obviously, we just talked about this. You were on Rob Font in the main event. Slight favorite, minus 135. And then, of course, it is back to me because it is a snake draft. I'm going to go with a prelim fight here. And this is, I just took an underdog. Now I'm going to take a chalky pick. Prelim fight. It is a women's fight. I'm going Gina Mazzani, minus 180 against Shayna Young. Like I said, a little chalky here, minus 180. But this might be my most confident bet in the UFC in the year 2022.
Ooh, fight of FOY, fight of the year. A minus
fight of the year,
favorite.
Bet of the year. I might put 5
Way
units.
Go out on a limb.
And I am not a 5-unit better. At most, I usually do
Whale
2 units.
Play.
This is my whale play lock of the absolute millennium. Pretty easy handicap here. Gina Mazzani, and I'm sure I'm mispronouncing her name. She's a wrestler. Shayna Young does not do well against wrestler. Gina averages 4.7 takedowns per 15 minutes. That's an insane rate of takedowns. Landed 4 takedowns in her last fight, 7 in her fight previous to that, and now she's taking on Shayna Young, who has a takedown defense of only 53% and has been taken down at least twice, including both her 2 UFC fights and her Dana White Contender Series fight. Handicapping does not get any easier than a fighter who gets a lot of takedowns against someone who can't defend takedowns. It's as easy as that. Minus 180, putting the house on it.
I thought for sure you were going to go with Alexander Romanov as a negative 2.881.
Yeah, no, you can't.
I did. Yeah, actually, thank you for bringing that up. I did actually want to bring that up. And actually, someone said, Kyle Walken said, whoever says Romanov first loses. Kyle Walken also said, I was quite enjoying the show, first-time viewer, until you said Vera beat a 15-0 Sugar. Well, there you go. But Romanov, I believe, is the biggest favorite ever in the UFC.
And it's crazy because,
little fun fact from a betting standpoint, literally the biggest favorite ever in the UFC.
I'm just saying, I like Romanov, but he's shown that he can be beat. He could easily hurt himself and just lose. You cannot go near that. Even I think he's minus 500 to win inside the distance. That's ridiculous. I wouldn't say go bet on Chase Sherman or anything, but
plus.
Oh, I did. I bet on him last week, and I'm betting on him again this week because it's $5.
I would say it's Sherman or pass. Yeah, it's Sherman or pass. If you're trying to make some money, you might as well throw a dart on it. Romanov could slip and fall and knock himself out. I've seen crazier things in the UFC. It takes one punch. Chase Sherman is a heavyweight. He could throw one punch and knock him out. Why not?
But
this is the one sport I would never lay a crazy price
No. I mean, disqualifications could happen. I mean, we've seen it.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. This sport, more than anything, it's so fast and stuff. I would never even think about doing that.
But Kyle Walken, I hope you're still watching here. I mean, no disrespect, but Marlon Vera beat Sugar Sean O'Malley. I mean,
he broke his foot or whatever. So
he got hurt. Who caused the injury?
His leg. Vera's leg. Yeah. I had Vera in that fight. I was pumped. I don't like Sean O'Malley, so I was pumped. But
okay, I'm not going to go that far. I'm not going to say don't like Sean O'Malley, but
I don't like him. Don't tell him I said that.
I'm going to bring him on next week, and we're going to play this clip.
So there's my first. That's the first pick. My first pick of the second round. Reed, it is back to you.
Yeah, I'm going to go with another favorite, Andrei Arlovski. Obviously, this guy. It feels like he's fighting once a month, once every 6 weeks, and he just churns out victories. I think he's going to be able to keep this fight standing. I think that he's the busier striker. This guy grinds out decision victories for a living, and I know he's 43. I don't really care. Nothing from Jake Collier beating Chase Sherman, who's now plus 1,100 against Alexander Romanov or Jan Vellante. Nothing convinces me that he has a chance in this fight. I think it's just going to be a classic Arlovski grind decision victory, 30-27, move it on. I'm getting back on the board with guys that are going to win this weekend.
He said today that he plans on, he said, I want to be around for a couple more years. And then he goes, and then he immediately said, not 2, 3 or 4. So he's not close to slowing down. And he
It's
seems
Better not be. I got him to win this week.
He's got like a 3-fight win streak or something too.
Yeah. So
He's
I
just
don't.
grinding out wins.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad bet at all.
Listen, he like takes shots also. Like what I don't really see Collier's path to victory that clear. Like I think Arlovsky, the guy knows how to grind out a victory, so I like him to win by decision.
Yeah.
All right. Amy, back to you.
Okay. So back with my theme of Wisconsin fighters, going with Gerald Meerschaert. I think that's how you
My
say
guy.
it.
I think it's Meerschaert, but close enough.
What is it?
I think it's Meerschaert.
That's what I said.
But also, I
Meerschaert.
could be wrong. Okay. You're
Meerschaert.
good.
I don't know.
He's
Anyways.
my guy.
Yeah. So why were you gonna bet on him?
I wasn't going to take him here, but I bet on him. I bet on him. I bet on him almost every single other fight that he's been in.
Okay, he's my guy because I'm betting on him.
All right.
Again, it's just another like last week and the week before. I just went with my heart. I didn't do a whole bunch of thinking. He's a heart pick, not doing a lot of thinking. I think it's going to be a really tough fight for him for sure. But he's on a 3-fight win streak. He can do it. I believe in him.
He definitely can.
Go Rufus Sport.
And your strategy of following your heart, Amy, has won you 2 straight drafts. So I'm not going to argue with that strategy.
Yep.
So there you go. Gerald Meerschaert, 3-fight win streak. Another underdog for you. Before we get to your third and final pick, Amy, and we get into the final round here, let's just recap the draft so far. Once again, Amy, both of her picks are plus 145 underdogs. She is getting aggressive with those underdogs this show. Reed, 2 favorites though, minus 135 and minus 145, complete opposite strategies. And then I'm in the middle, 1 underdog plus 115. And then my whale play lock of the millennium, Mazzani, minus 180. So there we go. It's shaping up for a good draft. Final round, final pick for you, Amy. What do you got?
Well, I forgot that I had another pick. So I was literally putting money on Chase Sherman right now. $5, just $5. I'm going to go another heart one, Natan Levy. I think he's the favorite. I think that he lost his debut, but I think he's hungry. He realizes he's got to come back and make a statement. I believe it was his first loss ever. He's incredibly talented. He's a favorite for a reason. He's my safe pick.
I don't hate that move. You have not huge underdogs, but 2 underdogs is not bad just to make sure you kind of get a win there. And I mean, he's a favorite minus 205, but not a massive favorite. And you're right. Did lose his UFC debut in his first fight via unanimous decision to Rafa Garcia. And that was his first loss, though. 6-1. Against Mike Breeden.
Rafa Garcia 2 weeks ago, I believe I won on him being an underdog from that fight.
I think
so. Yeah.
Sounds right.
You guys see my son crawling behind
me? Professional outing there. He's just trying not to get in the way.
That was amazing.
All right, Reed, your final pick of the draft.
Okay, so I went with 2 favorites. Didn't want to lay any more chalk. At the other sides I liked were a little bit closer, like minus 200. So I'm going to go, I'm saying this one wrong, but Johan Lanise.
I like it.
Okay, so plus 125 underdog. He's got the height and reach advantage, plus 3. He is 8-0, winner on the Contender Series, 6 knockouts. Of course, going against Gabe Green, who's significantly undersized. Obviously, I just said he's giving up 3 inches of height and reach. He's also been knocked out twice in his 3 losses. So I think, again, I'm going to say it wrong, but Lanise, he's going to be able to find a finish in this one. I think that, we're fading Green off of a win. He's struggled with bigger guys in the past. He lost to Daniel Rodriguez in his debut. So I like Lanise as an underdog. I think he's, this is more of a coin flip. So I'll take a shot.
He was our fan-sided fighter to watch this week. So
did they say nice words?
I'm sure if it was a fighter to watch. I can't remember what was said, but yeah.
Well, good, because he's my fighter to watch now. So I'm pumped for him to get a win.
And there you go. You have an underdog pick locked into your draft to complement the 2 favorites. So there you go.
There we go.
My last pick and the final pick of the draft, I will admit, Reed, I had 4 names written down here. None of the other ones were picked, and one of the names I'd written down was Jake Collier against Andrei Arlovsky. But I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it, man, because I bet against Andrei Arlovsky last time he fought and I lost. So
wasn't that like a month ago? Didn't he fight a month ago?
Yeah,
against
it was
Jared
not
Vanetta?
that long ago. It might have been.
That's what you're talking about.
That might have been the episode Jeff Molina was on, though. It might have been 2 months ago.
That's still so short for the UFC.
Right.
It was like a decision victory, so now Arlovsky's back in.
Yeah, so I don't want to lose picking against Arlovsky twice in a row, and also going against you with 2 head-to-head picks in the same draft makes me a little nervous as well. So instead, I'm going to change it up. I'm going with a guy, and I've seen his last name be different depending on what resource I look at. So on WinBet, he's down as Daniel Lacerda.
I saw this too.
But I'm also seeing him in other places as Daniel De Silva. So just
it's
completely. You're saying it's De Silva?
I always go by, this is the official fight card from the, you can't see it, from the UFC. It says De Silva. I always go by whatever the UFC, because they ask the fighter what they want to be referred as. So.
And actually, I do see WinBet now has changed it to De Silva, where I think it was Lacerda earlier, I believe. So there you go. So
it was that before, but I saw it both ways, so I just left it with what WinBet had.
So I apologize, Daniel. It is Daniel De Silva. He is fighting against Francisco Figueiredo, who is the brother of Devison Figueiredo. And I think he is being overvalued because he is the brother of the flyweight champion Devison Figueiredo. Because if you look at the statistics, this is Figueiredo's statistics: 1.9 significant strikes landed per minute.
Yeah,
that sucks.
Yeah, that's
strike defense of 64%. Not good there either. He's Lacerda's 0-1 in the UFC, but his only fight against in the UFC was against friend of the show, Jeff Molina. I mean, what a brutal introduction to the UFC, fighting against Jeff Molina, one of the greatest fighters to ever live and our good friend. So I'm not gonna dock points for a loss against Jeff Molina. So he's 0-1 in the UFC, but I like Daniel De Silva against Devison Figueiredo's brother, whose statistics just are not good. So there you have it. -120, slight favorite for that one. So there you go. That concludes the draft. Let's bring up a little recap graphic here so we see all of our picks. Amy Gordon. It is an interesting draft, and a lot of not really any massive favorites or big underdogs, really. All pretty close fights. Amy with a +145 in Gordon, +145 in Mearshart, and then a -205 with Levy. Reed, you are -135 with Font, -145 with Arlovsky, and then +125 with Lennes, possibly. And then I am +115 with Vera, -180 with Mazzani, and -120 with De Silva. Really quick, do you guys have any? Kyle Walken did chime in. I apologize for missing this a couple minutes ago. Andre Feely against Joe Anderson fight. What do you think for that fight? Do you have any opinion? Did either of you have any notes down for Andre Feely? That is a little bit more of a chalky pick. Andre Feely, I believe, is a sizable favorite, so I didn't dive too big into that. Usually I just kind of stick. He's a -250 favorite against Joe Anderson Brito. Usually I dive more deeper. Oh, there we go. We have a graphic for it. Look at that. I'm a big fan of Andre Touchy Feely, arguably one of the best nicknames in the UFC. I think he wins this fight handedly, but I'm curious if you two have any thoughts on that one.
I actually almost put my pick as Joe Anderson. But after seeing, because he's one of those guys where he's like not a name, so people just automatically underestimate him, and then Andre Touchy Feely is a name, so they automatically give him more props. But after seeing both of their interviews and seeing Feely, he was a different guy. Like he felt like almost like a motivational speaker, and I've never seen him like that. He spent 8 months where he was not sure he would ever fight again because he didn't have a contract and the UFC wasn't giving him a contract, and he kept asking for fights. And then finally one day they just said, okay, here's a fight. But he spent a lot of that time really thinking about life and about himself and stuff. And I just think there's no way in hell he's going to lose this fight. I just don't think. I can't see it unless some freak accident happens.
Yeah, I leaned Feely. Brito, he lost his last fight to Bill Aljo, and that was a similar like size disadvantage. Brito's giving up 2 inches of reach, 3 inches of height. So I don't think he's gonna be able to get this to the ground. So I like Feely. I think he like might even find a finish here. So like this was like for the sake of the betting draft, I'm not necessarily interested in taking Feely.
Yeah, that's my big thing. I'm gonna anything longer odds than -200. I kind of stay away with when it comes to the draft. But yeah, Feely's coming off a no contest, an accidental eye poke against Daniel Pineda last summer. So great insight there by you, Amy. That kind of makes me want to bet on him. So maybe I'll bet on him separately outside of the draft. Maybe a little 2-unit play on Andre Feely to get some money there. So.
Yeah, and if you're a fan of him and you want to see that interview, because it was, I mean, we talked for almost 30 minutes, I would say. It's up on our YouTube channel. Just search his name. It should be the first one you hit. It's worth it. It's worth sitting there for the full 30 minutes too. He was just fantastic.
Might as well go watch it now because we are wrapping up here. Next week is going to be a massive show, UFC 274. The three of us will be fighting for who will be taking Randy Brown in the draft, I'm sure. But be sure to tune in for that because that is a stacked card from top to bottom, prelims, main card, Justin Gaethje and Charles Oliveira for the lightweight championship in the main event of that. Can't wait. Any final comments before we close it out? How are you two feeling about your drafts? Are you confident?
I feel super confident.
Yeah, 3-0 on the way.
And if I lose, it's because of this beer. I'm going to go back to the wine.
And Amy is looking for the, I believe, first ever 3-peat. By the way, Reed, I think you missed this last week. Amy has set the jab cross hook record for most units won 2 weeks ago. The last show you were on before this, she went 3-0 and is like plus 4.5 units or something. Because
it coincides with my cold streak. So now, Amy, I'm sorry. Like you're gonna this heater's coming to an end. I'm back. I am in off-season basketball, locked in on the UFC. So you're just in trouble now, like that. Like now, I'm playing like a pissed off person. So I gotta get my self back on track.
And I will likely just continue to lose. All right, thank you to everyone for tuning in. If you're watching this on YouTube, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. As always, best of luck with your picks this weekend, and we'll talk to you all next week.